And from the varsity room at the Ray Tompkins House, we're with Craig Breslow, who just addressed a nice contingent here and talked about your time as a Yale baseball pitcher, your time in the major leagues, and a great season this year with Minnesota coming out of the bullpen with an ERA of under 2. Let's start first things first. Craig, how does it feel to be back in New Haven in the friendly confines of RTH?
It feels good. I think the last time I was in this room particularly was probably as a senior in college when Coach Stuper was addressing his team. But no, I come back to Connecticut every offseason, and I like to stay involved with the Yale community, and this was a nice chance to do so in an arena that wasn't a Yale-Harvard football game. So.
Well, let's talk about that. You spent some time with the Boston Red Sox. I was going to save this question for later, but what's more intense, the Yale-Harvard rivalry or a Yankees-Red Sox matchup?
I would have to go with the Yankees-Red Sox matchup, but not by too much.
But you got a little bit of baptism by fire in that, and you took part in a game at Yankee Stadium when you were pitching for the Red Sox. And what was that like?
It was a very surreal experience. I commented about that earlier, but I think that was probably the most kind of starstruck or the most in awe I've been. I think having a chance to pitch at Yankee Stadium, especially as a member of the Red Sox, is something that growing up in the Northeast, every child dreams about. Unfortunately, the results weren't quite what I would have dreamt. I got my first major league decision was a loss at Yankee Stadium pitching for the Red Sox, but hopefully I'll have a chance to avenge that.
At the new Yankee Stadium, which should be, some of the venues you've seen really must just blow you away when you're going into the major leagues and seeing some of them for the first time.
Absolutely. My big league debut was in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Ballpark, a new stadium. Had a chance to play in Petco, and I think everyone is excited to see what the new Yankee Stadium holds. It appears as though it'll blow away all of the current stadiums.
And Minnesota doesn't have a stadium too far behind either.
Right. 2010, the Target Stadium will be opening. It's an open-air stadium, which will be a stark contrast to the Metrodome, which remains 70 degrees every single day.
Well, good thing you had the experience of the Yale Field spring and knowing what it's like.
Right. I've already been snowed out of a game, so I know what I've got in store.
You spent some time addressing this group and talking about people who mentored you. You said Trevor Hoffman was one in San Diego. When you were at Yale and you were a senior and you were an outstanding pitcher here, were you mentoring the young guys on that Yale baseball team? And was it kind of interesting to see the roles change, going from the big fish to the small fish again?
I tried to. I obviously experienced firsthand what it's like to be an incoming freshman and to be away from home for the first time. And the day that I showed up on campus, the Yale baseball team went around. They kind of rallied all of the incoming freshmen. We went out, and I immediately felt like I had 30 other friends, and that's something that I'm sure the Yale baseball team still does, and it's something that I passed down to the freshmen when I was a senior. And quite ironically, Mike Finnegan was the captain of the team my freshman year, and he's a Minnesota native, and I actually had a chance to kind of get back in touch with him when I was in Minnesota this offseason.
You also, November 8th coming up, your foundation, the Strike 3 Foundation, is having a celebrity gala event at the Woodbridge Country Club, which we're happy to hear is sold out. Tell us about the foundation.
The Strike 3 Foundation is a charitable agency, and it's run essentially by my family and a gentleman named Joe Lees and his family. But the impetus for starting the foundation was my older sister, Leslie. She had a bout with thyroid cancer. When she was 14, I was 12 at the time. She's since made a full recovery. But the impact that something like that has on a young person's life, I think, is pretty great and pretty dramatic. And for a long time, I've wanted to be able to do something that gives back. And essentially, I woke up one day, got in touch with Joe, and we decided that now was as good a time as any. It was time to start working.
And I know that one of the things you like to stress is that, as luckily for your sister, but doesn't have to mean a bad thing as soon as the word cancer is said, especially for a child. That actually, with a lot of research and what your foundation is trying to help, prognosis can be pretty good.
Absolutely, and I think that's kind of the twist we're trying to put on this event, and even with the charity. We don't want to advertise a bunch of young children without hair in a chemotherapy ward. Instead, let's kind of celebrate the advances, and let's try to raise some money to ensure that those advances continue.
Getting back to baseball for a minute, you talk also about breaking into the big leagues and getting some harassment about your Yale education and solving questions and from becoming expert on anything. But from your Yale experience, how do you think helped you most about being a baseball player at Yale under John Stuper, who had major league experience, World Series experience? What about your Yale education actually did help you in the big leagues?
Well, I mean, absolutely. John Stuper's experience in the big leagues was a major reason that I ended up at Yale. He definitely he teaches a professional game. He gears his program toward players that can succeed in professional baseball. And then I think that the Yale experience prepared me kind of for the for the multitude of ethnicities, of people, of cultures, of races that you experience in professional baseball. Having grown up in a suburb of New York City in the Northeast, it's a pretty homogenous society, and ultimately I was then thrust into a place like Yale with international students, with a lot of students with many interests far different from mine, and I think that prepared me for then a life in professional baseball where I was a college graduate. I was playing with seniors, with players that had just graduated from high school, with players that had been in America for the first time and spoke no English. And I think that was something that I was kind of forewarned by my experiences at Yale.
You needed to be persistent to get to where you are, and were cut. And going back to the minor leagues, when you were also interested in medical school, and it's a time when a lot of people might have said, you know what, I tried the baseball thing, I gave it a go. Let's go to medical school, and now let's get on to the career. And you kept medical school as an option, but you stayed with baseball. And you think it actually might have helped you that you had that other option, and it wasn't like you were forced to be in the minors.
Absolutely. I'm the kind of person that puts a lot of pressure on myself. I want to make sure if I'm doing something, I'm going to be successful doing it. Otherwise, I'll find something else that I am successful at. And knowing that if my baseball career didn't work out, I did have this medical school plan to fall back on. Kind of gave me a new perspective on baseball. I was kind of able to really let myself, kind of throw myself out there, give it everything I had, and if it didn't work, I was okay with my contingency plan. I think potentially if baseball had been the only thing I had going for me, I might have put too much pressure on myself to ever really succeed.
What was the key, do you think, to getting to the big leagues, being called up, sent back down, called up, and going through that, which a lot of players have to go through, and then this year definitely staying power? What was the key? Do you think it's just you're more mature, mentally as well as physically? Is it really a dual track that has to be happening?
There's some truth to that. I also feel like a decent amount was circumstantial. Baseball contracts are set up such that every player has 3 years of options where they can be sent down to the minor leagues and brought back in any number of times for 3 years. Once you're finally out of options, before being sent down, you'd be exposed to waivers. So after spending 2005, 2006, and 2007 going up and down, 2008 represented the first year where I was out of options, and now to get sent to the minor leagues, I had to pass through waivers. And I think as a result of the seasons I had previously, both in the minor leagues and sporadically in the big leagues, there was enough interest that teams were willing to take a chance on me. And knowing that I had to be passed through waivers and risking losing me, gave me the advantage of not being a guy that would come up for a weekend or come up to fill a tired bullpen. I now got an extended opportunity to pitch, and that's the biggest difference for me this year was the chance to showcase my abilities over 6 months rather than 1 or 2 innings.
And Craig, a lot of the guys who are in the audience today were members of the current Yale baseball team, and some of the questions they asked that ranged the gamut from superstitions to mechanics of pitching. Did you think back for a second? Did it throw you back to what yourself might have been like if you were sitting in this room in a similar situation?
Yes, for sure it does. I mean, I think I think it would be kind of unrealistic to say that a big league or a major league baseball player, the elitist of any sport walks into a room, you're not somewhat in awe. But hopefully the audience here today saw that I'm just a regular guy, as cliche as it may sound. But I mean, the truth is, I worry about the same things that they do. You constantly doubt your abilities. Even with the charity, I've very much kind of got my hands on the pulse of what's going on. I respond to emails myself. Joe and I talk every day, sometimes hundreds of times a day, and kind of throw ideas around and brainstorm. And I wanted to make sure that I've remained as approachable as I was when I was a freshman in college.
Well, and on the charity, the website is strike3foundation.org. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the event is November 8th, and you can look up more information on that. And very proud of you being in the major leagues and also equally for the charity.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's Craig Breslow here from the Varsity Room at Ray Tompkins' house.